power of differentiation lies in our ability to break free from the patterns that have already been established. In education, as in life, most people follow a well-worn path, believing that success is achieved by doing what has always been done. Students are expected to memorize information, pass tests, and move from one level to the next without ever questioning why things are structured the way they are. Teachers follow standard curriculums, using the same teaching methods that have been in place for decades. Institutions measure progress in predictable ways, prioritizing scores, rankings, and statistics over creativity, passion, and curiosity. But what if the greatest opportunities for growth lie in what is not being done rather than in what is? Imagine a classroom where students are encouraged not just to absorb information, but to challenge it, where learning is not about repeating what has been said, but about discovering what has not yet been explored, where teachers are not just facilitators of content, but guides for innovation and critical thinking. True differentiation means stepping away from the comfort of predictability and stepping into the unknown, where new ideas, new approaches, and new breakthroughs can emerge. Most people hesitate to step into the unknown because it feels risky. It feels safer to do what has been proven to work, what has been accepted by the majority, and what guarantees a predictable outcome. But predictability is not where transformation happens. The students who truly excel are not the ones who simply memorize facts and pass tests. They are the ones who think beyond the test, who connect ideas in ways others have not considered, and who find meaning in their learning beyond just earning a grade. The teachers who make the greatest impact are not those who follow a script, but those who adapt their teaching to inspire curiosity, encourage independent thought, and cultivate a love for learning. The institutions that stand out are not those that maintain tradition for tradition's sake, but those that embrace innovation, challenge outdated methods, and create an environment where true intellectual exploration can take place. Differentiation in education is not about rebellion for the sake of being different. It is about recognizing that the way things have always been done is not necessarily the best way forward. It is about identifying gaps in learning, seeing where traditional methods fall short, and daring to take an approach that others are not taking. When we do what others are not doing, we create new possibilities. We open doors that would otherwise remain closed. We move beyond the limitations imposed by rigid structures and embrace a world where learning is not just about consuming information, but about creating new knowledge. The challenge of differentiation is that it often invites resistance. Those who follow the conventional path may not understand why someone would deviate from it. They may criticize, discourage, or question those who choose to take a different route. But history has shown that the greatest minds, the most influential educators, and the most successful students are those who refuse to accept limitations. They were the ones who saw education not as a system to comply with, but as a journey to explore. They were the ones who sought out new ways to engage with knowledge, who looked beyond textbooks, who experimented with new teaching methods, and who saw failure not as an end, but as part of the learning process. In every classroom, there are students who have the potential to think differently, but are afraid to do so because they fear standing out. There are teachers who have ideas for new ways of teaching, but hesitate because they are expected to follow a standard curriculum. There are institutions that want to innovate, but hold back because they are uncertain how change will be received. But differentiation only happens when someone is willing to take that first step. When a student decides to ask a question no one else is asking, when a teacher chooses to experiment with a new way of engaging students, when an institution prioritizes creativity and critical thinking over standardized success. Education is not meant to be a one-size-fits-all process. It is meant to be an evolving, dynamic, and deeply personal experience. It is meant to challenge students to think for themselves, to engage with ideas in meaningful ways, and to develop skills that will serve them beyond the classroom. It is meant to empower teachers to bring passion into their teaching, to connect with students on a deeper level, and to create an environment where knowledge is not just transferred, but truly understood. It is meant to encourage institutions to see beyond rankings and numbers, and to focus on creating an education system that prepares students for the complexities of the real world. Differentiation is not about rejecting everything that has been done before. It is about recognizing that progress requires change, that what worked in the past may not be enough for the future, that the most powerful learning experiences come from stepping beyond the expected and embracing what is yet to be explored. Those who dare to be different in education are the ones who will shape the future. They are the ones who will find solutions to challenges that others have overlooked. They are the ones who will redefine what it means to learn, to teach, and to grow. So the question is, are you willing to do what they are not doing? Are you willing to think beyond what has been given to you? Are you willing to challenge outdated methods, explore new ways of learning, and seek knowledge in places others have not thought to look? Because the power of differentiation is not just in being different for the sake of being different. It is in having the courage to pursue a path that others have not yet taken. And in doing so, you may just discover something that changes everything. The courage to challenge norms is not just an act of defiance, it is the driving force behind progress. In education, norms have been established over decades, shaping the way students learn, the way teachers teach, and the way institutions operate. These norms provide structure, but they can also become limitations when they are followed blindly. Many students go through their entire academic journey without questioning why they are required to learn in a particular way. They accept the idea that memorization equals understanding, that passing tests equates to intelligence, and that a degree guarantees success. Similarly, many teachers adhere to rigid curriculums, reluctant to stray from traditional methods because change is often met with resistance. Educational institutions focus on rankings, standardized scores, and compliance with established policies, often at the expense of innovation and meaningful learning experiences. But what if we dared to challenge these norms? What if we asked why certain teaching methods persist despite evidence that they may not be the most effective? What if we questioned why success in education is so often measured by test scores rather than by creativity, critical thinking, or real-world problem solving? The most groundbreaking advancements in education have come from individuals who were willing to disrupt the status quo. It is easy to follow a system that has already been built, but real transformation happens when someone has the courage to say, "This is not enough, we can do better." Challenging norms is not about rejecting everything that exists, it is about improving upon what has been taken for granted. When students question the way they are being taught, they open themselves up to deeper understanding. Instead of passively consuming information, they actively engage with it, seeking connections and real-life applications. When teachers challenge traditional methods, they create learning experiences that inspire curiosity and foster independent thought. They encourage students to think for themselves rather than simply repeating what they have been told. When educational institutions challenge outdated policies, they make room for progress, allowing for personalized learning, technological integration, and teaching methods that reflect the diverse needs of students. The greatest thinkers, scientists, and innovators in history were not those who simply accepted the norms of their time. They were the ones who asked questions no one else was asking, who sought new perspectives, who dared to believe that things could be done differently. They were the students who refused to accept that there was only one way to learn. They were the teachers who saw potential in students that others overlooked. They were the institutions that prioritized real education over rigid policies. Every major advancement in education, from the introduction of experiential learning to the use of technology in classrooms, happened because someone was willing to challenge the norms that others accepted as unchangeable. Yet challenging norms requires resilience. Those who question established methods often face opposition. They are told to stay in line, to follow the rules, to do things the way they have always been done. But history has shown that progress belongs to those who persist. The students who think differently today are the ones who will lead tomorrow. The teachers who innovate today will be the ones remembered for transforming lives. The institutions that embrace change will be the ones that set new standards for the future. The path of challenging norms is not always easy, but it is necessary, because without it, education remains stagnant and learning loses its meaning. Thinking ahead is what separates those who simply participate in education from those who redefine it. While most people focus on what is in front of them, preparing for the next test, completing the next assignment, following the current curriculum, those who think ahead anticipate what is coming next. They do not just absorb knowledge, they apply it to the future. They do not just ask, what do I need to learn, but also, how will this knowledge shape what I do next? Thinking ahead is the difference between those who react to changes in education and those who drive those changes. Most students spend their time meeting the requirements set before them. They follow the syllabus, study what is expected, and complete tasks within the given framework. But thinking ahead means looking beyond these requirements. It means understanding that education is not just about passing tests. It is about preparing for the complexities of life. It means realizing that the world is evolving, and the skills that matter most are not those that can be memorized, but those that allow for adaptability, innovation, and problem solving. Students who think ahead do not just learn to pass exams, they learn to build something meaningful from the knowledge they acquire. They anticipate future challenges and prepare themselves by developing skills that go beyond what the curriculum demands. Teachers who think ahead do not just teach for the present, they teach for the future. They understand that the world their students are preparing for is constantly changing, and traditional methods may not be enough. They integrate critical thinking, creativity, and adaptability into their teaching, ensuring that students are not just prepared for academic success, but for real-world challenges. They encourage students to explore beyond the textbook, to engage with knowledge in ways that will remain relevant even as industries and technologies evolve. They recognize that their role is not just to deliver content, but to equip students with the mindset needed to navigate an unpredictable future. Institutions that think ahead are the ones that redefine education. Instead of clinging to outdated policies, they anticipate the needs of future generations. They embrace innovation, incorporate new technologies, and create learning environments that foster collaboration, problem solving, and forward thinking. They understand that education is not just about maintaining traditions, but about preparing students for a future that is still being written. They look beyond standardized scores and focus on creating systems that nurture creativity, resilience, and adaptability, qualities that will define success in the years to come. Thinking ahead is not about predicting the future with certainty. It is about preparing for its possibilities. It is about recognizing that the way education is structured today may not be sufficient for tomorrow. It is about refusing to be confined by the limitations of the present and daring to create new pathways for learning, teaching, and growth. The students who think ahead will be the leaders, problem solvers, and innovators of the future. The teachers who think ahead will be the ones who leave a lasting impact on generations to come. The institutions that think ahead will be the ones remembered for shaping an education system that truly prepares students for life beyond the classroom. Education is not just about what is being taught today, it is about what that knowledge can create tomorrow. It is about understanding that the world is changing at an unprecedented rate and that the ability to think ahead is what will set individuals, educators, and institutions apart. Those who focus only on the present will always be playing catch-up, but those who dare to anticipate, innovate, and prepare for what is next will be the ones who shape the future. Thinking ahead is not just an advantage, it is a necessity. Because the future belongs to those who are ready for it before it arrives. The power of differentiation lies in the courage to step outside the boundaries of conventional thought and action. In education, differentiation is often seen as an approach to cater to various learning styles, but in reality, it is something much deeper. It is about making choices that others hesitate to make. It is about breaking away from the predictable and embracing an approach that challenges, excites, and transforms the learning experience. Differentiation is not just about being different. It is about being purposefully different. It is about seeing what others are not seeing, doing what others are not doing, and creating value where others have overlooked it. Many students believe that following the established path will guarantee success. They are told that if they study hard, follow the syllabus, and perform well on exams, they will achieve their goals. But in reality, the world rewards those who think differently. The students who rise above the rest are those who are willing to engage with their education in unique ways. They are the ones who ask the questions that others do not, who explore subjects beyond the prescribed curriculum, and who seek out knowledge that is not confined to textbooks. They are the ones who see learning as a journey, not just a requirement. For teachers, differentiation means moving beyond the standard methods of instruction. It means recognizing that every student learns differently and that education should not be about uniformity, but about personalization. A great teacher does not just deliver information. They inspire curiosity, encourage exploration, and create an environment where students feel empowered to think for themselves. They introduce unconventional teaching methods, use technology creatively, and foster discussions that push students to challenge their own assumptions. The best educators are those who recognize that differentiation is not about making learning easier, it is about making it more meaningful. Institutions that embrace differentiation are the ones that redefine education. They do not just prepare students to succeed within the system, they prepare them to succeed beyond it. They do not see education as a process of transferring knowledge, but as an opportunity to develop thinkers, innovators. They understand that the world is changing rapidly and that students need more than just theoretical knowledge to thrive. They need critical thinking skills, adaptability, and the confidence to forge their own paths. Differentiation is what separates an average education from an extraordinary one. It is the willingness to do what others are not doing that creates breakthroughs, transforms lives, and reshapes the future of learning. The courage to challenge norms is the foundation of all progress. Norms exist for a reason. They create structure, provide stability, and ensure consistency. But when norms become unquestioned rules, they limit growth. In education, many norms are upheld simply because they have been in place for a long time. Students are expected to learn in a particular way, teachers are expected to teach according to a set curriculum, and institutions are expected to follow certain traditions. But the greatest advancements in education have always come from those who dared to challenge these norms. Students who challenge norms do not accept things at face value. They do not just memorize facts, they question their validity. They do not just follow instructions, they seek to understand why those instructions exist in the first place. They are not afraid to disagree, to debate, and to propose alternative ideas. These are the students who develop a deep sense of intellectual independence. They are not bound by convention, they are driven by curiosity and the desire to find better ways of understanding the world. Teachers who challenge norms are the ones who leave the greatest impact on their students. They are not afraid to step away from traditional lesson plans and explore new ways of teaching. They use storytelling, hands-on learning, real-world applications, and technology to make learning more engaging. They encourage students to think critically, to develop their own opinions, and to explore topics that go beyond the standard curriculum. These teachers understand that education is not just about passing exams, it is about preparing students to navigate an ever-changing world. Educational institutions that challenge norms are the ones that lead the way in innovation. They understand that the education system was designed for a different era, and that new approaches are necessary to meet the demands of the modern world. They do not resist change, they embrace it. They incorporate interdisciplinary learning, project-based education, and opportunities for students to engage in real-world problem-solving. They understand that their role is not just to produce graduates, but to cultivate lifelong learners, critical thinkers, and individuals who are capable of adapting to whatever the future holds. Challenging norms is not easy. It requires courage, resilience, and a willingness to face criticism. Those who question the status quo are often met with resistance. They are told to stay in line, to follow the rules, to do what has always been done. But history has shown that the most influential individuals in any field are those who refuse to accept mediocrity. They are the ones who challenge outdated ideas, who push boundaries, and who pave the way for a better future. Education should not be about conformity. It should be about exploration, discovery, and the relentless pursuit of knowledge. The impact of consistency is often overlooked in discussions about success. In a world that values quick results and instant gratification, consistency is what separates those who achieve lasting success from those who experience temporary victories. It is not enough to be different once. Differentiation must be sustained over time. It is not enough to challenge norms occasionally. It must become a habit. It is not enough to think ahead sporadically. It must become a mindset. Students who are consistent in their pursuit of knowledge are the ones who truly excel. It is not the students who cram for exams at the last minute who become experts in their fields. It is the ones who dedicate themselves to continuous learning. The students who consistently seek out new knowledge, who develop strong study habits, and who remain curious beyond the classroom are the ones who build a foundation for lifelong success. They do not see education as something that ends with a diploma. They see it as an ongoing process of growth and self-improvement. Teachers who are consistent in their commitment to innovation create lasting change. It is easy to introduce new teaching methods once, but the real impact comes from sustained effort. The best teachers do not just experiment with new ideas occasionally, they make it a habit to refine their teaching strategies. They do not just inspire students once, they create an environment where inspiration is constant. They do not just challenge their students to think critically in one lesson, they build a classroom culture that values independent thought every day. Their influence extends far beyond the time students spend in their classrooms because they instill habits of critical thinking and curiosity that last a lifetime. Institutions that are consistent in their pursuit of excellence become leaders in education. Change is not achieved through one-time initiatives. It is achieved through a commitment to continuous improvement. The institutions that make the greatest impact are the ones that consistently evaluate their practices, seek out new opportunities for innovation, and prioritize the long-term success of their students over short-term metrics. They do not settle for maintaining the status quo. They are always looking for ways to improve. Consistency is what transforms ideas into reality. Anyone can have a moment of inspiration, but only those who act consistently on their ideas will create real change. Differentiation, challenging norms, and thinking ahead are not just actions to be taken once, they are commitments to be upheld every day. Success in education, as in life, is not determined by what you do once, but by what you do repeatedly. It is the small, daily actions that build expertise, that drive innovation, and that create lasting impact. The students who consistently challenge themselves, the teachers who consistently inspire, and the institutions that consistently innovate are the ones who will shape the future. Because success is not about being extraordinary in a single moment. It is about being relentless in the pursuit of excellence over time. The power to transform education, to redefine learning, and to create a better future lies in the hands of those who have the courage to be different, the boldness to challenge the norms, and the discipline to stay consistent in their efforts. The power of differentiation is not simply about standing out. It is about recognizing the value in doing things differently. In education, differentiation is often associated with personalized learning, but in reality, it extends far beyond that. It is about having the courage to take an unconventional approach when conventional methods fall short. It is about refusing to accept mediocrity and seeking ways to enhance the learning experience. The students who succeed in the long run are those who go beyond what is expected of them, who learn not just for grades, but for knowledge, and who apply what they learn in creative and meaningful ways. They understand that real learning does not come from following a set formula, but from exploring concepts, making mistakes, and discovering insights that others overlook. Teachers who embrace differentiation are the ones who inspire students to see education as a journey rather than a checklist. They recognize that not all students learn the same way, and they adjust their teaching accordingly. Instead of treating the classroom as a one-size-fits-all environment, they create opportunities for students to engage with material in ways that best suit their strengths. They encourage discussion, experimentation, and problem-solving rather than just rote memorization. They foster an atmosphere where students are not afraid to take risks, challenge ideas, and explore new possibilities. These teachers know that differentiation is not about making things easier, it is about making learning more effective and engaging. Institutions that value differentiation are the ones that shape the future of education. They do not just focus on test scores and rankings. They focus on creating learning environments that nurture curiosity, creativity, and adaptability. They understand that the world is evolving, and that preparing students for the future requires more than just following outdated educational models. They embrace interdisciplinary learning, real-world applications, and technological advancements to make education more relevant. They encourage students to think beyond the classroom and to apply their knowledge in meaningful ways. By prioritizing differentiation, these institutions help cultivate a generation of learners who are not just knowledgeable, but also innovative, critical thinkers who can adapt to an ever-changing world. The courage to challenge norms is essential in any field, but it is especially crucial in education. Many educational norms exist not because they are effective, but because they have been in place for so long that they have become unquestioned traditions. Students are taught to learn in a particular way, to measure success in predefined terms, and to follow a linear path to achievement. But progress does not come from blind acceptance. It comes from questioning what others take for granted. The students who make a difference are the ones who refuse to accept that there is only one way to learn. They explore alternative approaches, seek out different perspectives, and challenge the assumptions that limit their potential. Teachers who challenge norms are the ones who redefine what it means to educate. They do not just deliver lectures and assign homework. They create experiences that make learning come alive. They recognize that students do not just need information, they need to be taught how to think critically, solve problems, and make connections between ideas. They encourage students to ask why. Instead of just memorizing what, they understand that education is not about filling minds with facts, but about shaping individuals who can think independently and contribute meaningfully to society. Institutions that challenge norms are the ones that lead the way in educational reform. They recognize that the traditional system does not always serve the needs of modern students, and they are willing to make bold changes. They experiment with new teaching models, integrate technology into learning, and prioritize skills like creativity, collaboration, and adaptability over outdated measures of success. They do not fear criticism or resistance because they understand that meaningful progress is never easy. By challenging norms, they create systems of learning that are more inclusive, effective, and relevant to the challenges of the future. Thinking ahead is what separates those who merely adapt from those who drive change. Many students focus only on what is immediately in front of them, the next assignment, the next test, the next grade. But the students who truly excel are those who think beyond the present moment. They do not just ask, what do I need to know for this test, but also, how will this knowledge shape my future? They do not just seek answers, they seek understanding. They anticipate future challenges and opportunities, positioning themselves to take advantage of what is coming next. Teachers who think ahead do not just prepare students for exams, they prepare them for life. They understand that the world their students will enter is evolving rapidly and that success requires more than just academic knowledge. They teach students how to learn, how to adapt, and how to approach problems with a mindset of curiosity and resilience. They encourage students to develop skills that will remain valuable no matter how industries and technologies change. They understand that their role is not just to transfer information, but to cultivate lifelong learners who can navigate uncertainty with confidence. Institutions that think ahead are the ones that remain relevant in a changing world. They do not cling to outdated practices simply because they have always been done that way. They anticipate the skills that will be needed in the future, and they design programs that equip students with those skills. They integrate new technologies, embrace interdisciplinary education, and create opportunities for students to engage with real-world problems. They do not wait for change to happen, they drive it. By thinking ahead, these institutions ensure that students are not just prepared for the present, but are also equipped to shape the future. The impact of consistency cannot be overstated. It is easy to have a moment of inspiration, to challenge a norm once, or to think ahead occasionally, but real success comes from sustained effort over time. The students who achieve the most are not necessarily the ones who are naturally gifted, but the ones who are consistently committed to learning. They are the ones who develop strong study habits, who seek out knowledge every day, and who remain curious long after the school bell rings. They understand that education is not something that happens only in the classroom, it is a lifelong pursuit. Teachers who are consistent in their commitment to innovation leave a lasting impact on their students. It is not enough to try a new teaching method once. True transformation happens when innovation becomes a habit. The best teachers do not just inspire students on occasion, they create an environment where inspiration is the norm. They do not just introduce critical thinking in one lesson, they make it a fundamental part of their teaching philosophy. They understand that the key to meaningful education is not just what is taught, but how consistently it is reinforced. Institutions that prioritize consistency become leaders in education. They do not implement change as a temporary trend. They build a culture of continuous improvement. They do not settle for occasional success. They create systems that ensure excellence year after year. They understand that progress is not achieved through sporadic efforts, but through a relentless commitment to betterment. The institutions that maintain high standards, adapt to new challenges, and consistently put students first are the ones that stand the test of time. Success in education, as in life, is not about what you do once. It is about what you do repeatedly. The students who consistently push themselves to learn, the teachers who consistently innovate, and the institutions that consistently evolve are the ones who create real impact. Differentiation, challenging norms, thinking ahead, and maintaining consistency are not just one-time actions. They are lifelong commitments. Those who embrace these principles will not only succeed in education, but will also shape the future of learning itself. The power of differentiation is about more than just standing out. It is about creating meaningful value where others fail to see it. In education, differentiation is often reduced to adjusting teaching methods to accommodate different learning styles, but its true essence lies in the courage to go beyond the norm. It is about recognizing opportunities to improve the learning experience, even when conventional wisdom suggests sticking to the status quo. The students who truly thrive are not those who simply follow the traditional academic path, but those who find unique ways to approach learning. They are the ones who engage deeply with subjects, seek knowledge outside the classroom, and apply their learning in creative ways. They do not wait for opportunities to come to them. They create opportunities for themselves by thinking differently and taking initiative. Teachers who embrace differentiation understand that education is not about uniformity, it is about personalization. They do not see students as identical learners who absorb information at the same pace and in the same way. Instead, they acknowledge that each student has unique strengths, weaknesses, and interests. These teachers go beyond textbook instruction, incorporating discussions, interactive activities, and real-world applications into their teaching. They create environments where students feel empowered to ask questions, challenge ideas, and think independently. Their classrooms are places of discovery, not just places of instruction. They know that differentiation is not about making things easier for students. It is about making learning more engaging, relevant, and impactful. Institutions that prioritize differentiation are the ones shaping the future of education. These institutions do not merely prepare students to succeed within an existing system, they prepare them to create new systems. They recognize that traditional models of education often fail to foster innovation and critical thinking, so they adapt by integrating project-based learning, interdisciplinary studies, and real-world problem-solving into their curricula. They understand that the future belongs to those who can think creatively, adapt quickly, and solve complex problems. By fostering differentiation at every level, these institutions ensure that their students are not just academically competent, but also innovative thinkers who can thrive in an unpredictable world. The courage to challenge norms is at the heart of all progress. Norms provide structure and stability, but they also create barriers to growth when they become unquestioned rules. In education, many practices are upheld not because they are effective, but because they have been followed for so long that they seem unquestionable. Students are often taught to learn in a specific way, to measure success in standardized terms, and to follow predetermined paths. But history has shown that true progress comes from those who dare to challenge these assumptions. The students who make the biggest impact are the ones who refuse to accept things as they are and instead ask how they could be better. They do not just memorize facts, they question their validity. They do not just follow instructions, they seek to understand the reasons behind them. They are not afraid to explore unconventional ideas, take intellectual risks, and redefine what is possible. Teachers who challenge norms are the ones who redefine education. They do not simply follow a set curriculum. They design experiences that inspire curiosity and critical thinking. They use storytelling, experiential learning, and real-world case studies to bring subjects to life. They move beyond rote memorization and standardized tests, encouraging students to analyze, evaluate, and create. They challenge their students not just to learn, but to think. Not just to study, but to question, and not just to perform, but to innovate. These teachers understand that the goal of education is not just to produce competent students, but to nurture independent thinkers who can drive meaningful change. Institutions that challenge norms are the ones leading the way in educational reform. They do not resist change, they embrace it. They experiment with new teaching methods, integrate technology into learning, and redefine traditional measures of success. They recognize that preparing students for the future requires more than just teaching them established knowledge. It requires equipping them with the skills to navigate an ever-evolving world. These institutions prioritize adaptability, problem solving, and creativity over rigid adherence to outdated models. They are not afraid to take risks, face criticism, or challenge long-held beliefs because they know that meaningful progress only comes from questioning what others accept as given. Thinking ahead is the key to staying ahead. Many students focus only on their immediate academic goals, passing the next test, completing the next assignment, or getting the next grade. But the students who achieve true success are the ones who look beyond short-term objectives. They do not just ask, what do I need to know for this exam? But also, how does this knowledge fit into the bigger picture? They are not just concerned with earning a diploma. They are focused on acquiring skills and insights that will serve them throughout their lives. They anticipate future challenges and prepare themselves accordingly, ensuring that they are always ready for what comes next. Teachers who think ahead do more than just deliver lessons. They prepare students for life. They recognize that the world their students will enter is vastly different from the one they grew up in. They understand that success is no longer about memorizing information, but about knowing how to learn, adapt, and solve problems. These teachers do not just teach subjects, they teach mindsets. They encourage students to embrace curiosity, to develop resilience, and to cultivate a lifelong love of learning. They recognize that their role is not just to impart knowledge, but to help students develop the ability to navigate an unpredictable future with confidence. Institutions that think ahead are the ones that remain relevant in a rapidly changing world. They do not simply react to changes, they anticipate them. They design programs that equip students with the skills needed in emerging industries, they embrace technological advancements, and they foster a culture of continuous learning. They understand that preparing students for the future requires more than just providing them with a solid academic foundation. It requires equipping them with the adaptability and creativity needed to thrive in a world of constant change. These institutions recognize that education is not just about meeting the needs of today, but about preparing students for the challenges and opportunities of tomorrow. The impact of consistency is often underestimated. Many people assume that success comes from one-time inspiration or momentary bursts of effort. But in reality, success is built on small, consistent actions repeated over time. Students who achieve the most are not necessarily those with the highest IQs, but those who are disciplined in their approach to learning. They are the ones who show up every day, put in the effort, and continuously seek to improve. They do not rely on last-minute cramming or short-lived motivation. They develop habits of lifelong learning that sustain them far beyond the classroom. Teachers who are consistent in their approach create lasting change. It is not enough to introduce innovative methods once. Transformation happens when those methods become ingrained in daily teaching practices. The best teachers do not just inspire their students occasionally. They create an environment where inspiration is constant. They do not just encourage critical thinking in one lesson. They make it a fundamental part of their teaching philosophy. They understand that the key to impactful education is not just what is taught, but how consistently it is reinforced. Institutions that prioritize consistency become leaders in education. They do not make changes for the sake of novelty. They commit to continuous improvement. They build cultures of excellence that persist beyond individual leadership changes or short-term trends. They understand that real progress is not achieved through occasional efforts, but through an unwavering commitment to betterment. The institutions that maintain high standards, continuously innovate, and remain dedicated to student success are the ones that leave a lasting legacy. Success in education, as in life, is not determined by what you do once, but by what you do consistently. The students who consistently push themselves to learn, the teachers who consistently seek to inspire, and the institutions that consistently innovate are the ones who make a real impact. Differentiation, challenging norms, thinking ahead, and maintaining consistency are not just actions to take, they are mindsets to embrace. Those who commit to these principles will not only succeed in education, but will also shape the future of learning itself. ND 2 keynotes, up to 2000 Ward, without any headings.